Hello, my name is Clara Burghelea. I am a Romanian-born poet and translator. I'm very happy to be reading today, and I will start with some poems of mine included in my first poetry collection published in 2020 and called The Flavor of the Other. They will be followed by poems from my upcoming collection due for publication in 2021 with Cheffinch Press. Then I will read some poems in translation from Ștefan Manasia's two poetry collections called The Taste of Cherries and The Clear Sky. I will end the reading with one of my very first translated poems, a love poem by Romanian poet Nina Cazan called Dona Miraculata. Undology. Bad girls are made to kneel on walnut shells, get earrings taken out of their pink ears, see their mom bend to punchable noise, a rash of grief sheening on her worn skin. They are told to apologize for their nasal voice, the savage hair, the temper, and the awakenings. Beyond the window, their flesh and hunger go hand in hand, their gait a stemmed whisper. They make private constellations of scars, thin limbs breathing secret warmth into book covers. The world set in their hearts thunder 1,000 storms, yet no whirlwind sweeps them away from the two-room flat where they shrink into themselves. Old souls. The second poem is called Lost in Translations. When I plunge into the water, Velcro lungs hum, and the island quivers all the way to Etna. 3 years later of gentle slumber, the volcano coughs fistfuls of ash that glide into the roasting air down Valle del Bove, past pine trees and orange groves, all the way to the kind shores of Taormina. I rise above the emerald foam, the sun's heavy mouth sucks me dry, skin wrinkled like crepe paper. Above the hills, evening arranges itself under the quiet Sicilian dust, the clarity of the twilight melting away the heat. The 8 p.m. Ena Alta bus is kindly late. The Bieto lady frowns, beady sweat rimming her hairline. €1.20, por favore. Stepping in and out of the languages requires a shedding of the tongue, a death of the bird in the throat. The red-eyed bulb of the ticket booth scorches its plume. Next poem is part of my upcoming collection. It is called Confession. A mother wound lives under the skin, undone at first, throbbing less in time. It dwells between the ribs, under the left breast, the one she lost to cancer. At night you catch yourself thinking the dirt isn't real. An abundance of gifts fills your day. From doilies she crocheted on the living room table to cuddling perfect eggs that taste like fresh love. The way your daughter smiles down her sweater, comes back sucking up the frayed collar. The idle hugs your son gives to Seven the husky while feeding him French fries in the rosy afterglow of dinner. The breath of late summer on his cheeks. My heart's hungry atrium, begging for the day to linger. Young love to sap into the bread that is us, always rising. Another poem from the latest collection called Ode to the 80s Scrapbooks. We call them oracole, as if they could tell the future when all we wanted was to be seen in the moment. Old sheen and burning eyes, best friend necklaces and oversized sweaters our mothers knitted while doing extra night shifts at the chemical plant that fed and kept half a town. And what a town that was! Too large to contain whispers that made trees move on their insides, and then too small to matter when Ceausescu visited on August 23rd, 1 year, and we waited half a day in the sun, churning stomachs and scorched ears to sing our hearts out to Mult iubitul tovarăș. And the power failure at the chemical plant screwed up phone lines, and we were never told he would go straight to Sibiu, his son's residence town, and 3,400 kids, all braids and cravate roșii, dreamed under the blue skies, stems of their hearts stitched together. The rest of that summer tiptoed into our blocks of flats as we lay on our bellies on the cold linoleum, cutting and pasting flori, fete, filme sau băieți in our secret books, dripping wax on folded scented pages where secrets bloomed like bruises, then swapped them while waiting in line for bread, always super careful not to lose our ration cards. We would not yet miss the imploding youth in our bones, the thin thirst in our foraging fingers. The next poem is called Intermission. Light hauls me out of bed, Greek sun piercing the old shutters. A sleeper, soft as a creature, lies at the wooden foot of the bed. Your scent lingers on my breath like a promise, like oozing sand. The cry of a ghost bird slays the air, and limbs stretch the length of a wall in China. A persimmon in half on the wrinkled table. Its fork-shaped seed smiled as a mild winter, or so claims the fruit seller. It is worth a bite. Outside the window, the postcard home day peels off in slow motion. Against the teal-smeared wall, all the new shadows bear their weight in silence. Now, two poems by Ștefan Manasia, included in two separate poetry collections. The first one is part of The Clear Sky. Lithium, the dance of the snake. It rained a lot. My shoes are wet. You have been sleeping for 54 minutes and there is no one I can write to. And I'm sick of making rhetoric pirouettes. You are there with your bad dreams and lightnings and thunders from the west, or you are there with your ultimately seductive dreams and a sort of mental peace that keeps you warm and freshens up your breath. I would like to talk to you about love, but I know this binds you. Even those from vulnerable zodiac signs, addictive like us, are prone to raise an eyebrow, pull the warm blanket under their chins and think, that who gives shall lose. Still a heart of clay I shall give to you anytime and will accept to decompose in the little countryside graveyard, clad only in blue pajamas, listening to lithium and watching the tears of nice relatives, the gypsy who never hit me, women with sallow nails, because you are asleep, Patricia, and dream like a fox or a raccoon, and you are free and your slumber carries you away from me across the worlds. And now a poem by Ștefan Manasia included in his latest poetry collection called The Taste of Cherries. The title of the poem is actually poem. I'm a Hawaiian swimmer, fisherman drawn to stories, angelfish, currents. The ocean is warm and I can float for hours, for days without drowning, without wishing to come back to harpoon the undulating backs. Behind me there are drums, smoke, the totemic wives of a porcine king. In front of me, the marine highway, the liquid skin of the planet. In my heart, there is no distress, only love, ukulele song, energetic stalks. I am a fisherman. The goddess squeezes the grape berry. I fall on the island of velvety magma. Your balsam, Irina, at the end of a faraway journey. The last poem I'm going to read is one of the very first I have ever translated. It belongs to Romanian poet Nina Casian. It is called Dona Miraculata. And since you left me, I've turned into a bell, a carcass sparkling in the dark. You can no longer trace my frail shell, neither my eye, rounder and stark, nor can my sluggish hands feel life, my hollow walk consumed by yearning, your cruel graze, my temples running rife, the halo of my body burning. Thank you for taking time to listen to the reading. I would like to thank the Cultural Institute of New York and Cristina Bejan for facilitating this series. And I hope you enjoy the upcoming readers.
Hi, I'm Roxana Cazan. I'm a poet, and I'll be sharing with you today some poems I wrote during the past few years. They concern the subject matter of immigration and being a refugee, Some of the poems appeared in my poetry collection, The Accident of Birth, 2017. And if time allows me, I'll also present to you a poem included in Voices on the Move, Writing by and About Refugees, an anthology I co-edited with Dominica Radulescu and which is coming out promptly this month. What Winter? This poem is a poem that I wrote when I was living in the Alleghenies in Pennsylvania. The cold of this winter's dying breath is a song I can't seem to forget as I drive home, unwinding the dull highway. Snow gusts curtsy between heaven and earth, and I wonder what happens to the forest when the ice sets the night aflame and the stars begin to die one by one from too much glowing rivalry. Good and evil are Siamese twins, winding blood vessels around the magnificence of the same vital organ. No need for scalpels and separation, the groveling acts in a play called Pretending to be God. So what if a fawn feeds a pack of hungry wolves because of a lame leg preventing its sprint? So what if in Kirkuk a little boy's limbs scatter crimson in a bomb blast, like a chest opening meant to purify the heart with clean snow? In Pennsylvania, people's greetings bud widely in the empty streets, like tar flowers sworn to a precious bouquet for the 9 dug out of the Somerset deep. A woman talks to her dead child, calls her Daisy, takes her to church on Sunday. Good folk shake hands, exchange pie recipes, and pretend that Daisy's still alive. In the dead of winter, I wait for the sun, like a woman waiting in a train station. To Have or to Lose a House. 1. Altoona, Pennsylvania, 2014. We're hunting for houses between big woods where mountain men let lead fly around and drag the dandies into dirt nap when cervids wring their instinct into rut. This lonely elbow of the mountain city seems quaint, like a sketch of dried out coast when sun hits mountain crest and the sky echoes with so much guilt. We don't know, but the home we choose is built on the yawls of a Monongahela household, with rocks dug out of Iroquois graves, coated in the slender of the Sioux. And we sign the lease in blue ink, while a neighbor yells hello, welcome, from across the street. We smile and wave courtesy back, undecided whether this is a good omen or a bluff, and the neighbor's voice fades away only the next morning, when we read the newspaper, still in our pajamas. 2. London, UK, January 2016. Banksy's latest work in London is a monochromatic mural of Cosette, shrugging away from a world that blots her out in a cloud of tear gas. French policemen with hand grenades, ne touche pas, ne pas s'approcher. Refugees choking from green redolent suspicion. A paroxysm of coughs. Death flies feeble outside the hunting season. A woman washes her newborn in the frigid March rain, cold wounds swifter than hostility, and the sky turns on its drab defense without spite. 3. Aleppo, Syria, February 2012. Fatime, no last name, 35 years old, drove a truck from Homs to Daraa to help release 20 Syrian army defectors. A family of cranes flew over the car, almost dancing, graceful as red apples, and she knew it was going to be a better year. They caught her, raped her, hung her from the ceiling by her wrists, shocked her with electric current. They beat her. They raped her. They ravaged her home the way one desecrates a cathedral, with screams and body disfigurement. And when they were done, they left the door wide open. He looked for her like a dumb buck, wearing his heart loose in his own country. Morning with Pancakes and Nuclear Agreements. This poem references the announcement of a nuclear agreement with Iran. And this poem is dedicated to my husband, Ali, who's from Iran. We wake up with a stinging crave for pancakes. The bed's mid-warmth unfolds us towards the kitchen. We whisk, we fry, we powder sugar and cocoa until honey candies our thumbs golden. On TV, they announce with enthusiasm Iran's agreement on a nuclear deal. Voices rouse in hysteric polyphonies. Phone lines crackle. Maidans teem with the youth, and your eyes' sparkle rivals the luster of the sugar crystals. You recount how they began to assemble economic sanctions and replace the men they lacked right around the time you turned 4 on a crisp morning on the Dinavar plain, honed by hyacinths and Sassanid murmurs. Strategic bombing meant striking at the heart, betrayed by frailty and impermanence. Echoes of booby traps and hull downs, the evening shimmy of drills, the cold steel of barbed wire, crisp up like ephemera you can almost poke with the shy finger. These happened before your life truly began, and still you remember your thin neighbor staring down the crater that used to be his house, kneeling down to pray right where his parents, grandparents, bent their backs with steadfast certitude that His grace is abundant. Their tongue, planted between sea and desert, whispered and pleaded in a language with 16 names for happiness as they learned of heartache when the skies burst open from their howls. And that's a war you didn't really see, but you remember. When the drum stops beating, people die, you say, and countries matter more than the dead. And I know that this piece of news is like a beautiful fruit, too high, too sour for eating. Bleat. This poem is written as if it were an entry in a dictionary. Bleat. Noun. The characteristic utterance of goats or sheep, a sound similar to their cry. My grandfather raised 2 gray goats. The goats had earrings shaped like knives to plot ancestry. I was born during that terrible drought, a meatmonger, a mouse atoning for its hunger. Like me, every animal had to prove their usefulness, unbutton their bodies for the country, like women their wombs. My mother was like a chicken full of eggs. Every year she'd cannonball one, catch it before it hatched, the cleaver plunking to cut all vessels before sunrise. 2 survived. I became a sea song. My body became a shark with silver teeth harpooned into the shore, but the country did not want a rotten girl. Verb, bleated, bleating, bleats. To cry yourself to sleep on a boat or a plane. Border benches are not painted, all painted yellow. I wanted everyone to drown inside me. I was so lonely, I wanted to pickle my tongue. According to my mother, it was best to find a man soon, have my breasts bitten into like plums. On the other side of the ocean, I revisited its shoreline. The sea was almost dry. I found dregs of people, dry like shed skin. They came afloat like men of war. To whine when you cannot hold the grief in. I can only hold my breath for a little while. I cannot swim well. At some point, I forgot the language. Words became dumb butterflies. At some point, I rerouted my veins. They had to reach a safe place. At some point. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.